Okay, we're going to try something new here with Teams. I'm going to go ahead and record a video on this topic about station branding and logos and all that, and see if we can't get this out to everybody. And one consistent message, and then everybody can also go back and reference the video if they had questions about what the actual intent or whatever I'd said. So anyway, most of you may know that we are in the process of doing a branding campaign for our fire stations. Each one of our firehouses is located in a particular community, neighborhood within the township. And one of the things that we've discussed for, God, probably about 20 years is having a way to identify our stations with the communities that they're serving. Recently, Chief Walls tasked Assistant Chief Burns with coming up with some type of a program and engaging our personnel, our officers at the station levels, to come up with some type of a way to identify their stations and with the communities, or give them a personality per se. We all know that there are fire stations around the country that have mascots, have cartoon figures and things of that nature. And we wanted to do something for our own fire stations. And in doing so, we're going to put the process back onto our people. This is going to be an engagement exercise to get our personnel engaged in the process, and to really try to bring some life into each one of our stations in that connection with their community. There's nothing out there that says community like a community fire station. And if you've ever worked in a community where you've been a small fire station in a small community, you really understand that. And it just grows exponentially when we're in a larger community like we are. If you notice our social media presence and the comments we always get, the feedback, our citizens, our communities love our firefighters and our fire stations. So this just seemed like the next thing to do in a process to try and again, increase that engagement. So Chief Burns came to me, and since I had done some work on this in the past, I thought it might be a good idea to allow me to sort of take this and run with this, get something off of his plate and something more on my plate, but we'll get through this. So one of the things that Chief Burns had given to me was some guidelines. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to push this information out to our fire station captains and our station officers. Then what we want our captains to get with the lieutenants. We want the lieutenants to get with the firefighters, part-time and full-time. This is a engagement exercise to get all personnel engaged and have some type of an input, some type of a say in the identification of these fire stations. So as we're doing this, we had a couple guidelines that we want people to keep in mind. So what I'll do here is hopefully this will show up on the video, and you'll be able to see everything here as I go through this. So we know that today's political environment, we have to be very sensitive of certain types of items, saying statements, and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that our logos, our mascots, and the branding that we come up with is not going to offend anybody. We know what's out there in the community or in the national news about offensive mascots and things of that nature, and we are going to stay very clear of that. We are going to pick something tasteful. We're going to pick something that follows these guidelines in decency and political correctness. We do not want to stir any controversy because that's not what we're in for. We are in for inclusion for our personnel and our community. So no skull and crossbones. We don't want to be preaching grim and death and the Grim Reaper and things of that nature. Logos should contain something that is identifiable with the fire service. That either means an axe, a Maltese cross, or a ladder, rescue tool, something, a helmet, but it should obviously either the Maltese cross, but something that should identify that this is clearly the fire station and this is clearly from the fire service organization. The motto cannot have any offensive language or any innuendo. We don't want pinup girls from like the 1940s, from like the World War II bombers or anything like that. These things need to be maintained as a gender neutral or some type of a cartoonish type figure that it leaves no question as to the meaning behind it as a caricature, or we're not trying to promote one sex over another or one thing over another here. It should have the station number or the unit number if you decide to do a, I think what we're going to start with here, let's just start with the station numbers. We can expand that to unit specificity as it goes on. I think like at the 14's house downtown, they've got one for their station, they've got one for the heavy rescue unit, they've got one for their bomb unit. So, you know, right now we're going to stick with the station and get that moving. We should try to consider something that connects our community or the fire station with the community. You may know that Coleraine, Ireland, is where our John Dunlap and all them came from back in the 1700s. So maybe an Irish theme for one of the stations or all the stations or whatever you guys decide. Maybe a German heritage feel to them for something like at 102s or 109s because of Germania and Donauschwaben and the large German population that we have. Maybe something with like 102s could have something to do with the fort, Fort Dunlap, Fort Coleraine. And, you know, and it could go as far as to say something like on the avenue of holding down the fort, the play on words there. So really the imagination, you can use your imagination for whatever you want, but what we want to do is maybe try to pick something identifiable with that community. One of the things that we discussed, some of us discussed this morning, was that there, you know, there's really nothing more identifiable with the community than a high school and the high school sports teams. So maybe thinking about something utilizing a card, Northwest Night, or something of that nature. So from that, that's what we want to do is we want to have our station captains engaging our officers and our firefighters at each station. Let's see, I'll go ahead and get rid of that. I have a couple other things here to show you, maybe some ideas for some station logos. You know, all you got to do is do fire station logo search on Google, and you can come up with tons and tons and tons of different logos. The one I have here has Washington, D.C.'s fire station number 2, engine 2. It's got a picture of a Japanese dragon and some Japanese writing on it. Well, they serve Chinatown in Washington, D.C. So it makes sense to connect with that cultural heritage of that fire or of that community that they're serving. Some of you may also know that Lieutenant Niehaus has done some work over the years on other types of logos and things that we've discussed. And with that, I'm going to try and find some of them here. But he has done, he's pretty good with the artwork and the excuse me, I'm sorry. He's pretty good with all the artwork and all that. So here's some of the stuff that he's done, just piddling around. He had done some work with Captain Hempel and Captain Pickering years ago, maybe something like this with for Station 103, Guardians of the Grove for Peach Grove or something of that nature. With that, he also did a couple different versions of it. I'm trying to get it to move, and it's not moving. So let's see what we got here. We'll try it again. And it's still not moving. So anyway, you see what I'm trying to get to here. The thing here is Chief Burns has said there's money allocated for each one of our fire stations to come up with this product and to come up with some kind of a logo. What I don't need is everybody thinking they have to come up with the artwork themselves. If we decide we want to have a logo of, and don't quote me on this, it's not Excalibur, we're not putting swords on ladder 25. But if we decide we wanted to have a picture of a duck flying upside down over top of Mount Rumpke with an American flag on the side, That's the concept. Just write that down. We can get that to a graphic designer, an artist to come up with some type of artwork for that. So what we're looking for are we are looking for the concepts of each one of these things, and from there we can just take it and run with it. I thought I had another one here. Maybe I don't. So hopefully you all can see these. I guess not. It's not going to come up. But anyway, we are moving forward with this process. So what I just wanted to impress upon our captains. We need our captains to get with their lieutenants. I will get these guidelines out to everybody, officers and our captains. And you guys can call me at any time with questions. But what we want to do is we want to have some type of a process started within each station by February 1st. And I'd like to have something from each one of the station captains by February 15th. By that time, we can take that information and the concept, and we can start moving forward with it. So what that can look like is maybe have each one of the unit days at each station come up with their own concept of what they think they would like. Then the lieutenants get together. They decide whether this one would work better than another one, or maybe like the pieces from each concept. Maybe you guys all vote on it. If there's a tie vote, then the station captain can be the tiebreaker. But I want to leave this process up to you. However you decide is the fairest way to deal with this and decide this is fine with me. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll get off here. It's been about 12 minutes. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to call me, and we can get this thing started for our next stage in the evolution of this department. Thank you very much. Take care.